The Tale of a Hero. He had finished his project. An aura of pride burned from him afterwards. Finally, that took way too long. He smiled, getting rid of the excess sweat in his forehead. This thing he had so intensely worked on took months, and he could finally finish up soon enough. I'm hoping this does me wonders, the person concluded his work for the day, packing up all of his gear. He had messy, however not excessively long, parted black hair with a single black eye. Nobody ever figured out why. He also always wore a scarf, resting on his surprisingly cozy yet rugged clothing that sprawled over his near 6-foot frame. As he walked out of the blacksmith building, his co-worker gave him one last message before he exited. "See you, Mr. Lascano. Wishing you luck from Oasis Falls," his co-worker exclaimed, as energetic as always. The exiting hall was long enough for those words to echo to the person. "Thanks, Cameron. I'll see you tomorrow. Also, just call me Lorenzo. We've talked about this," Lorenzo replied, cheerful as always, laughing a little. That project was very important, and his earlier response made him feel like a bit of a main character. But who cares, right? Lorenzo was walking through his hometown, tumbleweeds rolling by his feet, and grass paired with various fauna getting tangled onto the fronts of his boots. Man, this place is so consistently refreshing. There's sand, grass, everything. Talk about variety. Joy is all you can find in the world of Cascas. He talked to himself, attempting to find entertainment as he took his usual stroll home. His house was located in the aforementioned sand portion of the town, being seen as a desert by most. Lorenzo thought this was needlessly pessimistic, as he was more optimistic. Well, at the very least, he tried to be. Alright, almost there. Lorenzo acted as if getting home was a struggle for him, enjoying the constant heat from his whereabouts. He had made it home soon after, stretching and reflecting on his day for but a moment. Before he entered his house, however, he caught the glimpse of a piece of tattered, somewhat yellow paper. It was buried deep in the sand. Lorenzo, who felt lucky the paper was even slightly revealed, decided to look at it for a moment. "Let's see here," he mumbled after making it to the paper. It was blank, with a clearly visible grid of folds on it. Oh, he felt disappointed, until he realized the paper was simply on the wrong side. Man, he sighed, turning it over. Lorenzo's stupidity reached no bounds after all. It reminded him of when he used to hang out with his far older half-brother as a child, always managing to do this wrong and break the bounds of common sense. What he saw puzzled him. A map? Huh? He squinted at it, as if that would help him comprehend what he was seeing. "There's a cross and a "You are here" marker?" He only continued to question the piece of paper, with various blocks of darkened spots and icons to mark danger zones, paired with things such as mountains and biomes. Why is this marker accurate to where I am? Jeez. Lorenzo stopped looking at it, overwhelmed. He put the map inside his pocket and walked towards his front door. He entered, exhausted from the big day. There were forests, snowy mountains, and even fully fantastical zones featured in that map, confusing the young man. Less confusing to him was his house. It was considerably messy, with every room besides the kitchen, bathroom, and living room left completely empty. He'd often do activities on the couch, including, but not limited to, sleeping. That was his only real hobby. Man, so much happened today. I finished my project, my vacation is starting soon, and I found this map. He prematurely entered his daily listings of his achievements, pulling it out of his pocket. Now his reflection is finished. It was as if the world around him faded to pure darkness. The only word that could describe the atmosphere was dramatic, or maybe intense. Unfortunately, Lorenzo wasn't in the mood for these previously mentioned atmospheres and moods. The only one he desired was sleep. So, to follow from that, he slept. Well, he had to get to bed first, of course. His muscles ached from the hard work of the day, with insomnia slowly kicking in, rushing him to get to bed before he couldn't anymore. "Let me just leave this stuff here," Lorenzo yawned, too exhausted to sort through his items. Once he concluded his lazy offloading, he began walking to the biggest of his 3 designated caches. Good night, world. He left the map on the table nearby, tucking himself in underneath his blanket and going to sleep. He struggled to enter a safe state of sleep, however. His thoughts kept clouding his mind, preventing him from the inevitable rest it wanted to enter. That insomnia was doing numbers on the guy. "God damn it, man," he mumbled, rolling over. He felt comfortable for a moment, but his thoughts only continued. He sacrificed his social life, his family, and everything to be able to live where he was now. Unfortunately, this status he found himself in was a poor, basic, and lacking situation. He could never find it in himself to go back either. What would he do? Who could he plead with? Nobody. That was always the answer. Nobody. He had even lost a part of himself for as long as what he could remember, but that part of his childhood was always absent from his memories. After his mind had crushed his mood and self-esteem, he felt no energy anymore. The world faded into black once again, but this time he wouldn't be awake to witness it. As he admittedly remained curious about the map, he fell to his own exhaustion. He slept. His dreams weren't anything special, always being about the brother he never met, or when he came across the dead body of his late father. The nicest parts of said dreams were his mother. She never left nor hated Lorenzo, though the dreams would become a despair-inducing spiral once the guilt set in. Lorenzo had left her alone after all. Due to the intensity of this guilt, he woke up within a flash. Luckily, it was around the time he typically awoke. Thank you, nightmare, my own unique alarm. He joked with himself as he got off the couch, with the smell of multiple cheap beverages overtaking his senses as he came to them. Disappointment was all he felt when seeing how little he took care of his living space. Lorenzo rubbed his eyes, attempting to wake himself up. Let's see, he yawned, grabbing his usual gear. The metal was cold on his hands at first, but soon warmed up to his rough yet genuine hands. It's good that this'll be a relaxing last day. I'll leave this behind. He continued to speak to himself, putting his mainly personal building gear down, still with a few items including his map. Lorenzo was going to spend the day not only clearing up the rest of his work, but figuring out why exactly he found this map, and what the purpose of it was. Lorenzo was overwhelmingly determined for once, practically raring to get to work. Time to go then, he stretched, shoving the map back into his pocket. I'll look at this to amuse myself. Lorenzo smiled. Leaving his house, he locked the door. As he walked, he stared at the map as previously planned. On the contrary, he stared at it blankly. No comprehension involved in the slightest. This was not planned. Lorenzo sighed. If only I understood why I received this. Well, I'm giving it the camera, so it should be all good. He slowly calmed his nerves, bringing his arms behind his head in a state of relaxation. As embarrassing as it may have been to Lorenzo, he hoped this map would be life-changing, though that was unlikely, and he knew that entering his workplace. The long hallway stared back at him as he was alone with his thoughts, even if it was only for a moment. Before these thoughts became overwhelming for him, Lorenzo then set off his plan in quick succession. It was almost like a distraction of sorts. He stopped by the server's desk at the end of the hallway, turning to the person next to him, and clearing his throat with incredible anticipation. Hey Cameron, I'm here to have a nice chat with you. Not for my convenience, I promise. He bowed, seeming genuine and kind. Cameron was in a state of confusion due to this, however. You're acting sorta odd. You sure you aren't? If you need help, just ask. He scratched his head awkwardly. Lorenzo took this at face value, jumping onto his knees all of a sudden. This weird and wacky behaviour was nothing short of normal for Lorenzo. Please explain this map to me, I'm begging you. He showed immense desperation, which was met by a sure on Cameron's end. Lorenzo was relieved, handing over the map. What occurred next wasn't what anybody expected. Waiting. For a while, Lorenzo sighed, sitting on a bench. He soon after remembered something important. Wait, I gotta get to work, he said out loud, leaving the area. Cameron heard this, therefore understanding Lorenzo's absence. He continued to look at the map, even without Lorenzo's presence. The old yet durable feeling of the paper rubbed against his soft fingers, with ancient times being the main thing that came to mind. There was a degree of malice in the drawings sprawled across the paper, intimidating Cameron. This is truly odd. Why is this cross so far? Shouldn't it be nearby? Unless... He had a large realization, flinching immediately. However, he didn't desire a confrontation. He simply continued his job. Lorenzo sighed. I remembered thinking this day would be different. He looked around the room. Guess I'm using the building supplies. He stretched, getting to work. The project was a steel blade, with Lorenzo hoping to possibly name it upon finishing it. The day went by quickly, however slow at some points. With the blade's name being decided as the Omen, he wrapped up his work, focusing on the things he didn't have. Lorenzo desired a nice, cool environment, though it was immediately clear, just by looking at his messy hair and dirty face, that would never grace the lonely workaholic. Due to the conclusion of his daily work, he began walking out of the blacksmith, as per usual. Despite his earlier excitement in relation to this new map, the hallway called to him. Or more accurately, laying on the couch called to him. He would have a few weeks off work, which excited him. Cameron caught a glimpse of Lorenzo leaving, beginning to make a catch-up attempt. He eventually called up, Lorenzo realizing he had forgotten about the map once he saw Cameron. Despite Lorenzo's stupidity, Cameron got straight to the point. Lorenzo, it's a treasure map. He took the constant breaths as he was exhausted from the run he had just committed to. Lorenzo was shocked. So, why was it in the sand? Why is the beginning location accurate to where we are? He put his hand up, confused. That didn't prevent him from shredding Cameron with questions. Cameron simply shrugged, leaving to go back to work. Lorenzo struggled to piece together what he had just heard, walking back home. There was no appreciation for the environment, nor relaxation. He made it back home, opening and shutting the door. What should I do? What if someone else owns this, hunting me down once they realize I have it? He stressed himself out, collapsing onto the couch. Lorenzo rolled around for a bit, though eventually ceasing to do so. He looked up, holding the map above himself as his body pushed against the cushioning underneath him. Let me see. He still struggled to piece together why he, out of all people, had this. But then he remembered something. He thought about what he'd be trying to accomplish his whole life. Success. What if this treasure contained gold? What if he could become successful? He could finally support his mother, finally be worth something. As much as Lorenzo saw this search as unrealistic, he saw it as a possibility. If he died, he would die trying. That's all that mattered to Lorenzo. He had a slightly stubborn mindset. He went to sleep early that night, thoughts rushing through his head. Would he succeed? Would he go alone? What would he learn? It was all a mystery to Lorenzo. However, one thing was certain to him. He would try, and possibly succeed. He didn't struggle to drift off that night. Well, maybe a little. He was excited after all.